All right, sixth graders, it is already March 11th. So I'm going to go ahead and date that up here. You will be doing this in your notebook, so I am going to show that in here. But I wanted you to be sure you were copying down the problems from set 1 and set 2, because that's what we're going to be going over. And then set 3 will actually be your homework, okay? So, here we go. A marathon runner plans to run at least 62 miles this week. So far, he has run 27 miles. How many more miles does he need to run to reach his goal? So, for number 1, our variable, what would make sense? What do we want to know? We want to know how many more miles. So let's say M is for our miles. And then we're writing an inequality. So if he has run 27, how many more does he need to get to that 62? So he has to run at least. Well, we know we're setting it to 62. So we have what he needs to run plus what he already has run. And if he has to get at least 62, we know it could be equal to, and if it's at least, it has to be either more or equal to, right? He wants to run either equal to 62 miles this week or more. All right, and then you would solve. So make sure you're showing your work with the draw tool today. You're going to subtract from both sides. You can also show your work in your notebook if you prefer to include that when you turn it in a doc or slide or whatever. And then this is 0, right? M plus 0. And then we have to take 7 from 2, which we can't do, so we borrow. 12 minus 7 is 5. 5 minus 2 is 3. So the solution is that he has to run greater than or equal to 35 more miles this week to get to that 62. Okay? Number 2. Let's look at number 2. Aria likes to keep her credit card balance below $800. Her last statement showed a balance over this amount, so she sent in a payment for $250 to bring the balance under her limit. What was the balance on her statement? So her last statement showed a balance over this amount. So her balance before minus the $250. Oh, we didn't see it that our B was for balance. We just moved on. So her balance, whatever it was, minus the $250, brought her below, so less than where she wanted to be. We don't know how much below, but we know it's less than, right? So then we would solve. Subtraction, we undo subtraction with addition. B is less than. So her balance was $1050. Was less than $1050 because now it's less than $800. Okay. Now number 3. A Category 4 storm in the Atlantic Ocean has a wind speed of 132 miles per hour. The wind speed must reach a minimum of 157 miles per hour to be classified as a Category 5 storm. Find the change in wind speed required to change the storm to Category 5. So we have to know what we would have to add. So we're looking for the change in wind speed. So we'll say W equals wind speed. We want to know what wind speed we would have to add to the 132 miles per hour that it was right now to make it either equal to or greater than, right? A minimum has to be greater than or equal to that minimum, which was 157. Again, you would solve. So you have W is greater than or equal to. So what would the change in wind speed have to be? It would have to be greater than or equal to 25. So not too far from a Category 5, right? Storm. All right, looking at set 2 now. Students on a field trip are divided into 24 groups with no more than 5 students in each group. So, students on a field trip. So we want to know how many total students on the field trip. So we know all of these students were divided into 24 groups with no more than 5. So there could be 5, but no more. So it has to be less than or equal to 5. All right, and then we would solve. So we are multiplying both sides to get rid of that division. We have S is less than or equal to 120. I always divide this by 2 and multiply by 10 because I know my 10's better than my 5's. I don't want to have to count by 5's 24 times. All right, number 5. So you might be taking up more space than this because of course you've written down in your notes these problems so you have them to refer to as well, right? A stock is selling at $2.40 per share. If Gary can spend at most $150 on the stock, how many shares can he purchase? So we want to know how many shares. I suggest S for shares. If it's at $2.40 per share, however many he buys is multiplied by that 240, right? For each one that he buys, it's multiplied by that 240, and he can spend at most $150. So he could spend less than or equal to $150. Right? At most. Hopefully you have those key terms. I'm dividing both sides by $2.40. So I have S. He can buy less than or equal to. So I have to do some work here. If I move this over, I also have to move this over. So that adds a 0. 24 can't go into 15. It can go into 150. I guess 6 times. Because I know 25 could go into 150 6 times, so this should work. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 2, so 144. 6, bring down the 0. 24, 48. So 2 times would be 48. All right, so here's the thing. He can't buy a part of a share. So we're going to say at max, he has to buy less than or equal to 62 shares. We don't even have to move on beyond that decimal point. Does that make sense? When we're answering a question, we have to think about it. Like we wouldn't have half of a person. We can't divide some things, right? There's some things we just can't divide. So since he couldn't buy any more shares, however, if you did want to move on, you could bring down another 0 and say, okay, he can buy 62.5 shares. So maybe either one would be correct if you had a similar question to this on a quiz or a test or just a teacher made, right? All right, hopefully that helps. Hopefully you're seeing how we write these out. Let's just do one more. I know we've gone a little bit long today, especially since you had to write those down. An online shop had at least 3 times as many orders in 2019 than it had in 2018. If they had 225 orders in 2018, how many orders did they have in 2019? So let's say O equals our orders. So they had 3 times as many, or at least 3 times as many. So 3 times the orders, maybe O was a bad idea. 3 times the orders was less than or equal to what they had in 2018. That's not right. It's great. If they had at least 3 times as many, so 225 would be less than or equal to 3 times the orders. I'm like using a cursive thing for my O because I didn't want it to look like a 0. So 3 times, so this is what, sometimes it's easier to translate straight to the other way, because then you see that it's really 3 times the orders is greater than or equal to 225. So at least that, but probably more, right? Then we would divide by 3. So they would have equal to or more than, wait a second. You guys, I've screwed this one all up. Do you see what I did? I was like, if we divided, then they're going to have less than, and that doesn't make sense. So really, the orders they have now divided by what they had before, 225, was at least, so greater than or equal to 3 times. I know that one was a little bit wonky. It's those division ones that they can't write any better. So we know we're multiplying, so we have to write a problem that is division, so we undo the division with multiplication. Now, hopefully this makes a little bit more sense though. If it had 3 times as many, whatever they have this, 2019 divided by 2018 is at least 3, so is greater than or equal to 3. Okay, and then you would figure it out by multiplying. Appreciate your patience here. So 3 225s, 15, 7, 6 is 675. So that is a lot more, right? So what the orders in 2019 had to be greater than or equal to 675, because they said at least 3 times that amount. That makes sense. Our answer makes sense, and that's what's most important. Whether you have to go back and forth to change your inequality or not is totally fine, as long as you're making sure it all makes sense, right? Sometimes we have to work through the problem and see, oh wait, that's not making sense, and go back and fix where we started. All right, I know we've gone really long today, but hopefully it helps you better understand.